Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we
What?
hear what pilots have to say. And today we have another guest going by the name of Zane, mainly because that is his name. And my name is Zach. I'm your host. If you've been here before, then you may know me. Today we have Zane as a CFI, and I think there's a few cool things to uncover about you. I think I met you when I first started working here.
Yeah.
But I'll let you do the liberty of introducing yourself if you don't mind, like who you are and where you're at in thrust and in your journey.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Zane Biggs.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I was born and raised in Northwest Arkansas, originally Fort Smith. And then I guess kind of how I got into aviation and stuff. I never really saw myself doing aviation growing up.
Yeah.
But everything that screams aviation is like who I am, just like the tendencies of what I'm interested in and just kind of how my brain works and things of that nature. So like, I guess just the daredevil aspect of how aviation is, and the wanting to never be confined to like an office job. Cubicle's not my thing. I got to keep moving. I got to be doing different things. So just getting out and about and doing different things is kind of a big thing for me. But yeah, nothing really stuck out as far as me growing up. I never really kind of looked directly at aviation. I guess without thinking about it directly, I guess it was kind of a thing that never really seemed very attainable until kind of some curtains were pulled back for me. Basically, it was a little over a year ago, I was exposed to a sermon at church, actually, where a nonprofit organization, they came in. They're from Florida. I'm not going to remember the name of it at the moment. But either way, they came in. They did a little short sermon, but then they basically just unraveled kind of how you could get involved in aviation, kind of what you could do with them if you were ever in their area and you wanted to get involved. Basically, what they did was they helped out some of the small islands kind of off of the East Coast over there.
Okay.
To some of the smaller islands that don't get packages delivered to them otherwise. They help out with that, and then they're spreading the gospel throughout and things of that nature. And so, but also they had the little plug, like I said, as far as how you could get into aviation. They had some different brochures and stuff going on, and it just was like this seed was planted. God just planted the seed in my head,
Yeah.
and it was just like it just sprouted. It just took off, and so I didn't really say a whole lot about it at first. I think I don't remember exactly how it went, but basically I said just enough to my wife to basically grab the brochure and grab the little couple of things they had to offer. And then I just from there dove off the deep end and researching, what it looked like to get into aviation.
Yeah.
Then at that point, I figured out it wasn't as far fetched as I guess outside looking in I thought it was.
Right.
And then over the course of a month or two, dug more and more into the what it looks like to get in and that process basically. And so then after some weeks and a couple months, she could see how much she like in passing me or whatever, and seeing that I'm looking at some more aviation stuff and researching different schools and everything. She's like, "You're still looking at that stuff?"
Yeah.
She's like, "You're still digging in deep?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm really think I want to do something like this." I'm like, "What do you think?" And she can just see like the some starting phases of passion building in it and how interested I am. And she's like, "Wow." She's like, "If we can figure it out," she's like, "let's just figure out how to make the moves happen and see if God opens the doors for us to make it happen." And so I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, we need to do a discovery flight first." So we did one back home that was right down the road from where we live.
Back in Arkansas.
Yeah, but it's not really her thing though. And
yeah.
so she's like, "Yeah, you go do the aviation.
Oh.
You go do the discovery flight." And she's like, "Yeah, go do your thing, whatever you need to do to see if it's what you want to do." And I'm like, "No, because we've been married for several years now."
Yeah.
And I was like, "No. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I want you to be, involved in what I'm doing and understand what I'm going through and whatever, and at least go on a little flight with me." And so I drug her with me, and so she went on the flight with me. And it wasn't nearly as bad as she anticipated. She said it was pretty cool. Obviously, she's not a big fan of the little space, and it wasn't her favorite. But it was better than she anticipated, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
It was my first time being in a smaller general aviation aircraft, and I was hooked. Loved everything about it. And so then it was just figuring out the logistics of making it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we looked at a couple of small schools around there, but I knew that if I chose a Part 61 school, that it would probably be a situation where it would take me forever to get it done, trying to pay as I go, or if I'm trying to juggle working full time and doing the training on the side, it would just make it difficult. And I just knew, I was like, if I really want to do this,
Mm-hmm.
like knowing just what different things we've been through in our past together, I was like, it's just, I feel like it's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Never going to get it done, and I'm never going to be able to really do this like I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to do this, let's just commit as a family. Let's just do this. Are you with me? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And so we
Wow.
figured out there was a school in Tulsa that I was looking at. It wasn't exactly kind of what I was looking for, but then I expanded my search a little bit. Looked at some of the other flight schools, but after looking into thrust, it kind of seemed the most homey Part 141 situation that I could find to get accelerated through and everything. So that's how we ended up here.
That's awesome. I like that you took her with you in the discovery flight to kind of make sure that she knows what you're doing. Because
Yeah.
it sounds like you said y'all have been married for a little while now,
Mm-hmm.
and that sounds like someone who has been maybe married for a little while. You're
Yeah.
like, no, we're gonna be on the same page.
Yeah.
You want to make sure, and I like that. Well, there's a few things that I want to kind of go back to because I really like that story because you moved here, right,
Mm-hmm.
for thrust and to train, right?
Yep.
Well, even before then, like you said, um, maybe you're at church and you hear about this opportunity and you kind of it piques your interest.
Yeah.
And you even said like maybe before that, like the 9 to 5 thing just isn't really it doesn't do a lot for you, and you like to move around. I relate to that very much myself
Mm-hmm.
personally. Um, and then you discover a little bit about aviation and that I think I align with a lot of this kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
maybe you figure that out later on. But I guess what I want to know is before that time when you get your interest peaked, can you tell me a little bit more about what you were doing then and maybe like how you were kind of feeling, I guess, because it sounds like maybe you were looking for a change even.
Yeah. So I worked in AV just before this. So I've been in some different industries.
Hmm.
I worked in restaurants for a while, managing them, and then
Hmm.
decided that wasn't my thing. I actually worked. That was actually my first job. Was working in restaurants, and then as I went to a year of college, decided at that point it probably wasn't my best idea because I didn't have figured out what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So I was like, I'm not just gonna waste all my money if I don't know which direction I'm going. So I got out of college and went in the basically pursuing the restaurant uh, industry and
Hmm.
climbing because I had an offer to take a management position, and I went up the management chain really fast in restaurants, and I was a GM by 20
Hmm.
of a restaurant, and so I was doing that, and then like after a couple of years of managing a restaurant, I got the opportunity to get into a district manager position, so I got
Hmm.
into that. Anyway, after a little while of that whole process, working in restaurants for about 8 years, 8, 9 years,
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, it's not my thing. I was like, I'm like the numbers aspect of it, and I can, manage and get along with people pretty well to be
Yeah.
able to do this successfully. But it's a really high stress in the not the most desirable ways. So
Yeah.
it's just like, man, I can't do this anymore. It's not my thing.
Mhm.
So I was just kind of searching the next couple of few years on what is my thing and trying to figure out what doors I could uh, walk through or have open to me that were the direction that they were right for me, right?
Right.
So I actually got into chicken processing for a while. That was not a good experience.
Okay, well that's a pretty left field. I'm sure we could go down a rabbit
Yeah.
hole there,
That's a
but yeah.
rabbit hole. But then,
Yeah.
most recently, AV, so audio visual stuff, anything from like TVs, surround sounds, home theaters,
Mm,
camera setups, Wi-Fi networking,
mm,
all the ins and outs of anything low voltage, basically, is what we did. And I had my own LLC that I was working for a guy and doing contract work for him. But it was really cool and interesting. I learned a lot of things that way. And again, it's another position where I'm not sitting still. I get to be
right.
busy all the time. I get
Yeah.
to put my hands to work. I'm a busy guy. I just like to stay that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was just, Yeah, like you said, it's just something that it wasn't quite. It was better, but it wasn't quite scratching the itch.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, everybody talks about obviously the pilot pay is nice, is great. That's a good aspect that draws a lot of people in, and that's a good little caveat to it.
Mhm.
But man, especially when I got in that discovery flight, I
Yeah.
was just like, I'm hooked, and I was like, I got to figure out how to make this happen.
Yeah.
And so when we did, and we could figure out how to get moved down here, it was like, let's go.
Made a lot of sense. Yeah. It kind of built up to that discovery flight. And I guess for it to build up and it to be as satisfying as you describe it to be, then like that's kind of like I mean, what better green light can you get, I guess?
Exactly.
And like you said, you kind of did a little bit of research after that and figured out where you wanted to go, right?
Yeah.
So you talked to your wife and you said, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so y'all talked about moving to Texas at that
Yeah.
point when you kind of figured out where you wanted to go. I think that takes a lot of confidence, right? I mean, you say your family. I don't know if you have kids or not.
I do. I've got
Okay.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have a wife and two kids,
Yeah.
and for you to say, I want to pursue a completely new career
It's
in
scary.
another city, another
Scary.
state. I mean, yeah, it's kind of scary, but you said like if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it all the way.
Yeah.
Like why? Like what makes you think that? Like
I
why?
just
Yeah.
know otherwise it's like, I don't know, you got one life, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. You kind of just held back by, you know, what if this, what if that, but also if you don't try, what if this, what if that,
Yeah.
so you've got one life to live, go for it,
Yeah.
put the pedal down, give it your all,
Yeah.
go in the direction that you want to go. If you find that, that wasn't the road that you thought it was going to be,
Mhm.
cool, change course again, go figure it out, whatever. But just based off of everything that I kind of got from all the research that I was doing, I was like, man, this is it. So I was, head
Yeah.
over heels, putting all my resources into one direction, and it's like we were just kind of saying, it's scary, a
Yeah.
wife and two kids, and we're established, and we still own a house in Northwest Arkansas
Okay.
that
Yeah.
my in-laws are living in now and taking care of for us. But it's scary thinking about, this is the passion that I want to pursue, and that
Mhm.
I'm 32, and so I'm not, super old, but I'm not one of the super young guys either. But just
Right.
enough time to have a good, lengthy career in aviation, assuming it all pans out right. Um, and so we're basically committed to this, and but to transplant a wife and two kids is scary, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, I'm committed to this, but also in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I hope I'm making the right decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm responsible for a wife and two kids, and she's taken the workload of, she's working full time, and obviously I wasn't able to work while I was as a student, but now that I'm as a CFI, I can bring in a little bit of money, but it ain't buying mansions or anything,
Yeah.
let's just say
Exactly.
the least.
Not yet.
No,
uh.
but yeah,
Yeah. No. I guess you answered that kind of like that's what I was looking for. That's good. I guess the last thing I'll ask about that then, just because I mean maybe it's personal curiosity, but I'm hoping that maybe the viewers would ask a similar question. So there's risks though, right? What
yeah.
were some of your perceived risks, and how did you justify that? If you don't mind me asking, I know that's kind of like a crazy. You kind of
I
already told
mean,
me, but
most of
like, were you worried about like, oh, what if we go broke and we don't have enough money, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think most of the risks that I was thinking through was more personal life things. I don't know if you're referring to aviation or personal or what.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
maybe
most of the
personal.
things that I was thinking about were personal life things, like, how difficult it is going to be to get, the kids into school, or, if she's going to be able to find a job. And she actually had a couple of issues with the first job or two that she had here that were not uh, what she signed up for, were just not good situations.
Mm,
She's an esthetician, so she's got a lot of history in it,
mm,
and they just weren't good situations. So that was kind of a bumpy road that we weren't ready for, and so
mm,
it was kind of tough getting started down here. But
yeah,
she's well established, and she works at World Springs up the road, the new place, and I think she likes it pretty well there now, and so we're established and doing well there. But yeah, there's, I mean, multiple aspects. I wasn't super worried about not being successful at aviation or anything, because I knew I think I set myself up pretty well in my head that it was going to be probably pretty tough, and
mm,
there's going to be some obstacles and everything, and that I kind of know myself well enough that I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to make it work. And so I tried to carry that aspect in our personal life too. Is like, I tried to let her know, like, I'm anticipating some rough rough roads ahead of us as we get down there. And so, we're just going to have to stick together. We're going to have to figure it out. We're probably going to hit some obstacles, and we've hit more than we anticipated.
Yeah.
But we're figuring them out one step at a time. So, but yeah.
It all seemed to overcome, like something you could overcome, and I guess that's
Yeah.
the point of it. And I guess I just wanted to hear that. That's cool to hear. Not everyone wants to make the leap, so
I know it's not easy.
yeah, no, absolutely not, and that's
Yeah.
the point. But you're saying that you're happy you did, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
ecstatic that I did.
because here you are now. I mean, you started here as a ZTA student, like no license or anything like that, just having had
0 hours.
Yeah, 0 hours. There you go. But you've recently become a CFI, right? I mean, it's pretty recent, right? How long have you been a CFI now?
Yeah. So I got hired on with Thrust the end of October.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, so you're
It's been
still
all
moving
pretty
into
fresh
that.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you how was it moving through your ratings, starting from 0 to getting to your CFI rating? I mean, did that take a little longer than expected, and was there anything bumpy parts of that?
Not initially, because I mean, I guess that's an obstacle that's unknown that you don't know until you get into and a good ways through your training and everything, because there's going to be ebbs and flows with how efficiently you move through your training timeline,
Right.
because of weather, different things, different ratings or certs that you're going to be working on. You're going to need to be VFR. If you've got a lot of clouds and everything and you can't get out of those clouds, it's going to be hard for you to get a lot of flying time in and get that part of your training done, which is kind of what we ran into some of in my class last winter. And so we were all kind of freaking out there at first about like, oh, all of our flights are getting canceled because this and that and the weather and stuff. And just be patient. It's part of the process. Be around the school. Be ready for flights to pop open, especially if you're in an instrument and it's really cloudy a bunch. Get some extra flights. You can get through instrument quick, but there's going to be different opportunities while you're finishing one rating. It's obviously the times of year are constantly passing right, and you're getting into the next season. You're getting into spring and summer, and then once you get more into summer, you're not going to have near the amount of clouds and all the issues as far as weather goes, so you're going to be able to fly more and things like that. So it's ebbs and flows of the seasons, and kind of I wasn't ready for all that.
Yeah.
But that was kind of an obstacle that you kind of changes up things. So I thought that it was going to take me a lot longer to get through because of my initial month or two worth of not flying very much. I was like, you guys said 9 months, and I feel like I'm based off of how much I'm flying, it's going to take me 16 months now. And which things worked out, and I think I got through exactly 9 months.
Oh yeah, and that's the 7 to 9 months is the goal.
Yeah, and even then, I think that there was I think that I was kind of projecting for a while there towards the end. I probably could have made it through it, 8 or just beyond 8. CFI slowed down a tiny bit for me.
Yeah.
But overall, yeah, I mean, it went through, just the right timing that I was kind of planning for, and it worked out. But yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I'm always curious about people's timeline because, like you said, it varies a lot. But pretty consistently, it's usually around 9 months, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who's plugging in the way that you were. Like you said, you were here. What helped you? Yeah, what helped you kind of get through in that amount of time? Was there anything that you think contributed to that a lot?
Oh yeah, definitely, and especially if you're around the school quite a bit, you can see the differences. Get around the school, be around the school, study with people, be around aviation. They kind of say that at ZTA Day every time, but it's not a joke. It means something. I think the more that you're around the aviation industry or just in the school in general, you're going to be able to drive through and push through this process faster, and just naturally be more successful because you're submersing yourself in aviation, right? So yeah, I mean that makes a big difference, and then you can see it now. I'm obviously still early on as an instructor, but I can already see as I was going through my CFI process as a student and then getting into a job as a CFI, you can kind of see some of the different students that are around a lot more. They seem to be generally more successful and moving through the program a little faster. And then you'll see, maybe a couple of faces that you rarely see around the school, and then you'll kind of notice back at what rating they're on, and then you'll look at them again and they're still there. And it's just kind of those it's not a coincidence, right? It makes a difference if you're around more and you're studying with like-minded people and you're all trying to pursue the aviation and everything,
Hmm.
it definitely seems to make a big difference in getting your writtens done.
Yeah, in getting your writtens done.
Yeah,
I
that's
like how you
a
just throw that in at the
it's
end. That's
oh, yeah,
always
that's a
what
big
people
thing
say.
too.
Yeah, be around and get your writtens done. I mean, you should
Yeah.
be. It should all work out after that. Can you speak to the kind of like the change in your role here at the school? Obviously, a student to a CFI is a different role, but and how you participate in things. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, I mean, I feel like as far as, what I'm thinking of in my head, it happened really fast,
Hmm.
but the first 1, 2, 3 flights with a student where I'm the guy, like I'm the instructor, like I'm in charge
Yeah.
basically. It's like,
Wait a second.
yeah, the reality that dumps
Yeah.
in your brain, and you're like, oh crap. You're like, okay, cool. I'm watching the Bravo shelf. I'm watching this. I'm watching that. I'm watching for traffic. And then you're all obviously teaching at the same time.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a reality check for sure. I mean, I kind of expected it coming, but whenever it actually
Right.
hits, it's another level of reality
It's like
that
having a
you.
safety net and then not, right? And then
Yeah, yeah,
even more
yeah.
so becoming the safety net.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like that's a crazy difference. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait a second, I am plan B. You know what I mean?
Exactly, you
So
are the plan B. So
yeah.
it you kind of get used. I feel like I've gotten used to it pretty quick.
Mhm.
So I feel comfortable with it now. But whenever you boom switch the roles, and it's just like you're not necessarily solely responsible, and then you are.
Yeah.
It's a reality check for sure.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you get prepared for that pretty well, but the reality is the part that kind of hits hard.
yeah,
But now that you've kind of gotten into it a little more, you're saying you feel a little more comfortable.
oh yeah,
Is there any like are you working with students already? Like how's that going?
yeah. I've got 3 students.
Okay.
But yeah, they're all instrument right now. So
Okay. Nice. Okay, gotcha. You did your research going into the like before you signed up.
hmm
Did you know that becoming a CFI was a typical part of your journey?
yeah. So I guess I didn't really touch on this earlier, but I did know that that was probably going to be my best route as far as building hours,
Mhm.
just based off of the research that I did. I
Yeah.
knew there was other options, and I had already looked into those too,
Mhm.
and that I could make some money doing those too. Just not super great money, um, but I also know with some of my past in different industries, I've done training in those industries as well, and I kind of know. Uh, that with training, for you to be able to train, you've really got to understand it. And
Yeah.
so I knew that doing this was a not only a good thing for me to time build, but more
Mhm.
importantly, a better way for me to kind of instill the knowledge and information
Mhm.
in my own head. Because I know that if I can train it, that I'm really got to know it and
Mhm.
understand it really well. So it kind of just cements that knowledge better in your head to be able to train it. You've got to have that next level knowledge to be able to actually give it to somebody else.
Right.
So yeah.
You have to be able to go a little deeper than what it is that you're trying to teach.
hmm
There's got to be a little bit beneath the tip of the iceberg, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, some people aren't sure that they had to be or that they were going to become a CFI when they start their journey, and I always like to ask that because that's kind of an interesting thing that's like that is common
hmm
in aviation. Not every industry is going to ask you to be a trainer at some point,
Yeah.
which I think in this scenario, like you're saying, teaching it's going to take you to the next level as a
hmm
pilot. And you have a little bit of that training experience
Yeah.
in the past. Do you feel like that's translating over a little bit?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's made a big difference. It's just as far as communicating with people in general. I mean, I generally care about people, so people coming up underneath me, I want them to be successful too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that experience in the past with training in different industries, it's definitely played a big part as far as just general communication and kind of understanding how to get along with people in different situations
Right.
and stressful situations, things like that. So yeah.
Now that you're a CFI, you've been through your fair amount of check rides, and then now you're going to be administering maybe some. So, oh no, you're not necessarily. You're going to be preparing
Yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
for check
Preparing
rides.
people for them.
Um, are there some things that from your own experience that would be something you'd want to pass along that you look forward to passing along to your students about check rides and preparing for them?
Make sure that your logbooks are accurate.
Mm,
Um, put them in pen. Stop filling out your logbooks in pencil. But I mean, it's your logbook, so own it.
mhm,
Make sure you're kind of paying attention to kind of what's going in there.
mhm,
Make sure you've got the right endorsements and stuff,
yeah.
and that your logbooks are added up correctly. Typically, the student is going to add up their own pages and put their own totals at the bottom of the page. Sometimes, in cases, your instructor is going to confirm those things, but make sure you're putting the stuff accurately in there, because when we go to do IACRA, if things aren't making sense as far as, because some of the hour totals play off of each other, right? And then if you put some numbers in that don't make sense off of each other, well, now we got to backtrack and spend an extra hour or two figuring out, where we messed up, where we did something wrong in your logbook because something doesn't make sense.
Right.
So kind of take off some stress for you, putting those numbers in right. Plus, they're not even going to let you start the check ride if you're missing an endorsement or it's filled out wrong or whatever. So then you just did all this preparation for your check ride, and now you don't even get to do it because you've got something that's messed up or incorrect or whatever, things like that. But yeah, besides the just general studying and making sure that you're prepared for the check ride, that's kind of something I kind of feel like flies under the radar and maybe doesn't get as much attention as it should, as far as the attention to detail on the endorsements and logbooks and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I talked to someone about that recently, and that's not something I do hear a lot myself when talking to people. It seems like the last thing you want when going into something that people are typically very concerned about, like a check ride, the last thing you want is like a major hurdle.
Yeah.
Something that says, "Oh, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do this today because this is so." You don't want to rack your brain over something that's outside of the check ride. I can imagine that not being a good start to it all.
No.
Not to mention DPEs, they're not here for that. They don't want to. I don't know if the DPE is involved in that's the person you're supposed to be showing, right? Or
Yeah.
okay, I don't know how the IACRA goes. So
yeah. So they're the examiner, right? That they'll be conducting your check ride. So yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. The last thing they also don't want to be worrying about that. So
Yeah.
have it ready to go, including documents and things like that people like to mention, like showing up with like a missing document. It's just kind of like
Yeah. Make sure you've got all your stuff when you go to check rides.
yeah, show up prepared with documents, everything in hand, and be ready and be rested, things like that. We're actually making a video about that today with someone else, so that's gonna be kind of fun to talk about. And I'll probably have them put in the whole thing about making sure your logbook's ready to go.
Yeah.
We actually made a video about that too recently.
Nice.
Okay, so I mean, we've gotten a lot of things covered already. I think I'm just gonna like ask you about just a few things here towards the end. This like one of these is like kind of for funsies. What's a unique experience you may have had in aviation, if you've had any? Like, is there any flights that you like to recall, or maybe tell someone a story about who, or anything like that? I mean, maybe there's not one, but yeah.
Yeah. I think probably my top couple of things that I've done so far are like whenever we train and practice emergency situations. A lot of times we're gonna, simulate a situation where you're checking your airspeed. For us, best glide 76. You're adjusting for that, and then you're looking for your best place to land. There's obviously the whole flow you can go into and everything.
Right.
But what's cool is usually you're gonna, if you don't have a runway that you can make it to, assuming that maybe your engine was out or something, then you're basically just simulating. Okay, cool. Look, I'm picking this field right here, or whatever, this road, whatever it may be. But there's been two different scenarios where I think, one of them was in commercial and another one was in CFI training, where I actually got to do a simulated emergency all the way to a landing at a runway, right?
Yeah.
So one of them was in Durant. I was doing most of my commercial training while we were in Denison, and it was probably like, I think we were a little over 5 miles away from Durant. Whenever I checked the closest airport, that was the closest one, and we were at like 4,400 feet. So I was looking, and I was looking for a best place to land. I looked at my nearest, and I saw that airport, and I told the instructor, I was like, I don't know if I can make it that far. And he's like, one way to find out. And so it was just a simulated emergency, right? So,
right.
I was going to point in that direction, and then if I, couldn't make it, well, then I was going to pick a field close or whatever. But it was really cool to be able to execute the entire thing and grease it right on 1,000 footers. That feels awesome to practice an emergency and actually be able to put it all the way down. And then in CFI, same kind of scenario, except for we were close to a runway that we were going to. I think it was at Caddo Mills. Basically, we did a steep spiral down, and then ended up in a basically expanded power off 180 situation. We were just further out than a normal traffic pattern would be.
Mm-hmm.
So we took a steep spiral down and then ended up in a downwind. I think it was for 1.8 at that time, and then
Yeah.
basically it was probably a mile and a half away from the runway there, and
Yeah.
then just execute a power off 180 from a steep spiral down to the power off 180, and
Yeah.
then again put that one on 1,000 footers. It feels really cool
Wow. I mean, it
to be
has to
able to
be a
do.
confidence builder. Like, man,
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
nailed that. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like a trick shot almost.
yeah. To be
Uh,
able to execute and like run a full simulated situation to where you can this thing isn't going to fall out of the sky. You can still fly this thing to wherever you kind of want to get it within reason, obviously.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, to be able to do a couple of those is probably one of my couple of best experiences in the plane so far. But yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. And I haven't heard anyone really talk about this, so it's nice to hear about.
yeah.
Well, we've like covered pretty much everything that I would have liked to have covered. You've given I feel like a lot of insight not only in the school and how to approach your training, but even just making the decision to do so.
Hmm.
I mean, I think most people don't think it's attainable
Yeah,
until they realize it is, right?
exactly.
I
That
mean, I
was
would have
me.
never have understood. Yeah, I wouldn't have understood it. It's maybe more attainable than many of the jobs you're looking to
Hmm.
get out of college,
Hmm.
in my opinion.
Yeah,
Now that I've been here for a while, and so I think that's a lot of good insight. And then you made the call, you did it. I
yeah,
mean, you doubled down. I think that's what
yeah,
people. I think that's what people should expect to do when they're coming in.
yeah,
So either way, I appreciate all the insights, and thanks for joining us today, Zane.
yeah. Of course, anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. And if y'all have enjoyed this episode, if you're still watching or listening, I guess that means you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment, a like, or a subscribe, even a rating on some of the listening platforms. We try to share the comments with our guests. So if you have any questions for Zane, we'll see if we can follow up with that.
Yeah, let me
uh,
know.
yeah. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.